the wine. It's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coffee for me.
Welcome everyone. Just let you all sort of join. It's really great to have so many of you here today. I'm delighted to say that this is English Touring Opera's fourth in conversation with. Gosh, flying by. Here we are, and I'm even more delighted to say that Amanda Echalaz and Anne Mason are joining us today with James Conway to talk about Jenufa, ETO's production of Jenufa and their careers after Jenufa and all sorts. A little bit of housekeeping. If you want to see the people speaking big on the screen, then you just need to click speaker view or press it on your iPad or tablet. And please do add your conversations to the chat, and I'll try and bring them into the conversation probably when James, Amanda and Anne have sort of wound up. But hello, both of you, Amanda and Anne. It's really great to see you.
And you. It's great to be here.
And I'll hand over to you, James.
I have to admit, I have to do my own housekeeping and say that if I move my head, you will see a giant crack in the wall behind me. So I'm going to try to keep my head in the same place. It's the result of someone in the flat below me having taken out a whole lot of walls. So there's been a load of settling in my apartment, and I have cracks in this whole end of the apartment. I fit them before. About that new
the neighbors.
They say that where you live is a reflection of your mind. So I don't know what that's.
Their mind's empty.
James, can you tell us who introduced you? Who spoke first?
That was Bradley Travis. Bradley Travis.
Just says English Touring Opera under him. Bradley Travis. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Bradley works with me. He devises all our learning and participation. He's also a wonderful singer and has been in an awful lot of English touring opera shows. We work really closely together.
Thank you.
But girl, it's so great to see these girls again. Obviously see all of you, but I mean, Amanda and Anne have this. Jenufa was the show in which we worked together, and I've worked with Anne on other shows. Another particular show, Maria Stuarda, and I worked with Amanda on 4 shows in a short period. They were all big things. I mean,
we were suckers for punishment, James.
Well, I have to say it kind of helped. It helped me a lot in my career working with you, with both of you. I learned so much from you. I feel I owe so much to you. And
no, it's the other way around for me.
No, and you gave me so much joy, but also tears in performance, particularly in this opera. But yes. What year was it we did Jenufa?
2006.
2006.
My dears, we do not count the years.
No, but I had to look it up. I thought, I bet he asked what year was it. I thought, I'm going to be 2006.
That was, I wanted to do that opera like my whole life, basically. Well, actually, when I worked for another company in Ireland, we did a version of it with piano, which was somewhat imitating the success Scottish Opera had in Opera Go Round with a production of Jenufa. But visiting it with orchestra was really quite a different experience, because there was this thing that is so intimate and searing, but that has to be made big and communicate. In a piano accompanied version, it can be a chamber play, but you have to have the quality of chamber relationships, but in allowing the orchestra to come through, the orchestra to tell its own story, to breathe and so on. But I'm jumping the gun. I want to ask a couple of questions about your lives first. And just, was there someone who led you to singing? Was there someone who influenced you into thinking that singing was something you had to do to express yourself?
Want to go, Amanda, or me?
You go ahead.
Well, I was a very small child. I was looked after by my grandfather while my parents went out to work, and he sort of used to sing songs to me and get me to learn songs. I was about 3, And well, I lived in a seaside resort, and there's like an open air theatre, and they had competitions, and apparently the prize was a stick of rock. So my parents took me to this outdoor thing, and I mean, I can't remember it really, but I remember saying, "Oh, I want a stick of rock," and they said, "Well, you've got to do something then." So I said, "Okay, I'll go and sing." And so I got up and sang, and they were like, "She's got a voice." So from that moment on, my mother was like, "You're going to be a singer." But I didn't.
Mother.
My mother, she wanted me to be on the stage, one of those mothers. But I just, so it was there, and I wanted to learn the piano. I wanted to be a concert pianist. That's what I really wanted to be. And I learned the clarinet, and I learned the piano, and I went to grammar school, and then, yes, you're going to music college. I wanted to be a nurse, and they said, no, you're going to music college. Went to music college, and it just carried on, and that was it. But I was also told at music college, you'll never sing opera. I know. Because I just did Lieder and French song and oratorio, and it was Tom Hammond. Do you remember Tom Hammond at the ENO? And he was giving some coachings, and he said, "My dear, you'll never sing opera, and if you do, it might be a very small role, but I don't think so." And there we go. I know. Yeah.
What do you think made the change then? Did a teacher discover that you have this quite sizable lyric instrument?
Well, I don't think I did then. And it was, when I finished at the academy, my parents said, well, you've got to get a job. And I could have gone with BBC Singers, and I decided that wasn't really what I wanted. So I joined the Welsh National Opera Chorus. And in those days, they gave people small parts and covers, and I started to get small parts and covers. And then I decided I didn't want to be in the chorus. That was not me. I wanted to be a star. And I left and came back to London, found my teacher, and then went into the opera studio. And then I was really lucky finding my teacher, finding the right person, and I never strayed from that.
Who was that, Anne?
It was Peter Harrison. It was my Peter Harrison. And then when he went to Portugal, I then went to Joy Mammon.
Right. And Amanda, didn't you have a similar path in a way? I mean, when you got as far as weren't you in the WNO chorus briefly?
I was, yeah. I think, remember likewise for me at college, it was, when the voice is still young, I think sometimes the colleges can write you off a little if you enter young, the voice is naive sounding. So I had a similar experience where they sort of said, maybe manage your expectations and, don't aim too high. And so when I finished, I did 2 years at Welsh National Opera in the chorus, and I learned so much. It was fabulous. It was like a training area. You could watch all the singers, learn the roles, hear the music. I loved it. But I did say to myself, 2 years, and then I need to leave.
And when you were little, was there someone who gave you the encouragement to think that you could do this, well, for a living, but certainly for your expression?
Well, when I was little, my parents always played all music, all types and genres of music. And my father loved listening to opera in the evenings. So every night I would hear him listening to opera. So I was very used to hearing it. And then by chance, my first piano teacher heard me sing and said, oh, you should have some singing lessons. I was pretty small at that stage. And it just so happened that she put me in touch with a dramatic mezzo, an Austrian lady, very fierce. And so she started all the, I would sing Lieder and all that sort of thing at that point I was probably 10, 11. Wow. And then by 12, I remember saying, oh, I don't want my friends to know that I want to be an opera singer. So I always knew I wanted to sing, really. It was.
You didn't want your friends to know because it was.
It wasn't cool, James. I thought they would laugh at me if I said I want to be an opera singer, so I just kept it stumm. But I just always somehow knew that was what I wanted to do. But then once I went into college, I sort of thought, well, maybe I won't be a soloist, but maybe I could be still have a career in opera, but, you know, perhaps in chorus work. So, yeah, it just took me a while. It took a while for my voice to develop, you know.
I want to tell you how I heard about you both, because it's quite different. While you were in the chorus at WNO, I heard from a couple of people, there's someone you have to hear. There's someone who is, things are changing. There's someone who's really ready. And I remember hearing you in audition and just thinking, holy cow, it's all there. I think you sang Fiordiligi in the first audition.
I did. I mean, and speaking of who did, Ludmilla Andrews really helped me. At that stage when, you know, you've left college, you've done a bit of chorus, but really it's hard to get auditions. It's hard to be taken seriously. And Ludmilla really helped. And I think actually she got me the audition with you.
She did.
I think that was how it happened.
We were very close, and she used to do auditions with me. And actually, she could be quite caustic about people as well as very kind. But she was a great judge.
She was very blunt and very honest with me, which I needed.
Yeah. I remember, speaking of light voices, sometimes when a light lyric soprano would come into the room and sing, you know, with a pretty but very tiny voice, she would just look at, I'd be studiously making my comments about, you know, who they studied with and all this stuff, all that stuff that we have to destroy now because of data protection. And Miller would just turn to me and she'd say, "It's another fairy, James." So if you have a role for a fairy, fine, but otherwise no use.
Yeah, she had a knack for getting straight to the point.
She did. But Anne, I heard you on something when you were very young, because it was on a cassette tape, singing in opera that a friend of mine had. And I just thought, what is that extraordinarily expressive voice? It wasn't like other people's voices that I'd heard. This kind of richness, ease at the top, but a beautiful richness in the middle always, and a capacity for singing very low. I was blown away, and I thought, well, I'll never get a chance to work with this person.
You're sure that was me?
I'm sure it was you. I'm sure it was you, because I know someone else who was in the show. Anyway, it did, you know, I never thought I'd get a chance to work with you, because you were very established when we did come to work with you, very established, and you had a really excellent career. And I knew the only way to do it was to offer you a role that you wanted to do. And I think you had worked on the role of Kostelnička already in Glyndebourne as a very young one. Yeah. So I knew you'd worked on it, and I thought, this is the only way I'll ever get Anne Mason to do this part, would be if it's something she's put time into and wants a chance to get to perform 20 odd times.
Oh, I remember. Yes. Well, that's true, actually. And I was thank you for that, because I really learnt it, you know, and because it was in English, wasn't it? It wasn't in Czech. Yeah. And that was the thing. When I then sang it in Czech, it was such an advantage to have sung it in English, because I knew what it was. It's so difficult if you don't speak Czech, I don't speak Czech, you know, and people say, well, how do you remember what the words mean? And you just have to pinpoint certain words. But having sung it in English, it was so helpful, because I could take what I'd learned in the English into the Czech, even though I don't speak Czech, you know.
And it's a good translation, actually.
It was very, very good. Yeah.
The era when ENO music staff did really good translation.
Yes, definitely. No, it was good. Do you remember that time in Crawley when they had a strike?
Oh,
we sang it in the church hall. Do you remember that?
That's right, because they closed the theatre. Oh, bless it. And I remember thinking, in your case, Amanda, that it was a great gift that you appeared, and we heard you at the right time when you were looking for things. You were relatively inexperienced as a soloist, and I thought,
relatively, I was completely inexperienced.
Well, yes, I was being polite, but I was thinking, okay, how do we play a good role in this extraordinary person's life, and I'm not going to have her for long. So let's see what roles will really work. And there was Fiordiligi. I think was Jenufa the first.
There were no Fiordiligi, I think wasn't it?
I think Fiordiligi
I'm
was
terrible
the first.
remembering years.
Yeah, and Alcina was very shortly thereafter.
Yes.
And Tatiana.
Exactly.
And really, it sounds a little bit extraordinary that all those roles will fit, but it was at a time when they all fitted you like a glove. I mean, Alcina was extraordinary.
It was such a gift for me because I really gained so much experience, especially with the touring. It toughens you up because, you know, you're singing, then you hit the road, then you go to the next place, then you hit the road. It's different acoustics in all the theatres. So that was good training to stop you from listening to yourself and trying to judge things. And I learned so much of the trade in those years. So for me, and the roles that, you know, just, I should have been paying you.
No, not at all. Not at all. But we also had, I mean, it's always scary when you get to do an opera that you really want to do. Because there's the first day of rehearsal, that I know that the singers are nervous that I'll say, oh, let's sing through the whole thing. And you think, oh no, that's just what I don't want to do, sing through it in front of everybody. But but it's good learning for me. But also, you know, the director's nervous thinking, but this is great. And I have great people and I could so easily mess this up just by not figuring out what brings out the best in somebody, or, you know, getting too obsessed with my own agenda in the piece and not allowing it to be the thing that is made by the people in the room. And on the other hand, if I'm not clear and if I don't have a plan, I'll just frustrate the people in the room.
Yes.
Yeah. It's also nice when you get a chance to work with the director again.
Yeah.
You know, I found it was great having so many opportunities with you, James, because we became very familiar with how each other worked and how far you could push each other and when to ease off. And that's that's a luxury. Often you just sort of work with one director, you go to the next job, it's another director. So I find it very beneficial that we had the time to work repeatedly with each other. But I also I was so desperate to do Jenufa, just going back to what Anne was saying about Glyndebourne, because I also did chorus at Glyndebourne. Oh. And whilst I was there, I sang Barona. So that was when I first got to know the music, and I was so desperate to do Jenufa. So when it came to ETO, I was just, it was like a dream come true. And actually, I've always wanted to do it since, and it's never come up.
Really?
Or, yeah, now I'm probably getting too old for Jenufa.
No. Oh no, it's one of the best things I've ever done, I think.
Yeah.
But Anne,
and it was wonderful working with you, Anne.
Well, and you.
We had such a good relationship, you know.
Well, I think I mean, I've only done it 3 times, and I have been lucky each time, actually. Really lucky.
But you gave it such a dimension, because it's easy to make her just sort of so fierce and so tough, but you gave her the tenderness.
No, well, I didn't. Yeah.
And I really loved that in your interpretation.
Well, it's interesting because I can't remember. Well, I think I did that we decided that, didn't we, James, anyway, to have her not, she wasn't horrible. And I remember I was walking in town one day and someone said to me, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm going to be singing Kostelnička. And they went, oh, don't you need a horrible voice for that? I was like,
yeah.
No, I don't think so. Oh, it's normally done by someone with a horrible voice, isn't it? I went, well, I can't do that. So, and I actually don't believe she is horrible. I think she's suffering, and she's so deep and so emotional. And she doesn't she's not nasty. It's just full of love for this person, this stepdaughter. So, and the music, when it's sung really well, is fantastic. It's beautiful.
It's just heartbreaking. Yes.
That was the way I could. That was the only way I could play it. That's the only way that I wanted to play it. That's the only way I could do it. You know.
Isn't the title in Czech is actually her foster daughter?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, the thing I looked forward to was actually hearing it lyrically sung, because it's quite rare. But when you think in Act 2, that's ravishing lyrical music. And if somebody's got a voice like a drill, it's just a waste of time.
Well, I know, but well, that's true. Yeah, what can I say?
I want to ask you about I want to ask you separately. Is there a scene in the piece, however short, or a moment in the piece that really speaks to you most directly? Can you remember?
I think, you go on, Amanda. Yeah, go on. Gives me time to think.
For me, it's just the extraordinary duet at the end. And the there's ways of music where she just forgives him. And to me, that's the most extraordinary part after everything she's gone through and being a victim of, really. And she comes out with such dignity and kindness and forgiveness, and the story meshing with the music there, to me, like, I get chills now, just I can hear the music in my head.
I can hear you starting that scene.
That always just, I don't know. I think there's something.
Amanda, do you remember the way that scene starts is, there now, Latza. They've all gone, you go too. Assuming that she will be left.
Yeah.
And it's a declaration of love. How could you do other? I mean, it's very transfiguring, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, I think that really is one of my. I mean, it's hard to choose, because honestly, the piece has so many unbelievable parts to it.
That's what I was going to say. It's difficult to pinpoint one, but for me there were two. I think the scene when Steva comes in, and then she's trying to, talk to him, and then he she knows that she's going to have a baby, and then he goes, and then he's going to try and get Latza to marry her, and then that doesn't work, and then that is just, the music is so intense. But also the last bit when she finally says, "I'm sorry, and will you forgive me," to Jenufa, and I can hear it now, and then she forgives her, and it's like, oh, it's amazing, and she just goes off, she walks off. But those two parts for me, not the big scene, actually, not the aria, but the interaction with the other characters was more poignant.
They're both set up by music in the orchestra that creates, as you say, waves, but in the case of the final scene, it's almost like a ripple that becomes a wave, whereas the scene with Steva, in a way, Kostelnička is trying to make the waves, to move this person whose heart is not made of stone, but his heart is really a very shriveled little acorn. It's not even worth bothering.
And it's begging him, and then she gets rid of him. It's just, I remember it clearly. Yeah. Anyway.
And is there a moment in it that was really hard to sing, and learning how to sing it taught you something, either about yourself or about the role?
It's all hard.
I think, for
what
me,
do you think?
I remember just discussing this with you, actually, at the time in rehearsals. It's that moment when, she realizes that the baby's dead.
Oh, yeah.
When she's, she thought he was just sleeping and fine, and then, you reveal to her. And that bit was one of those bits that I kind of had to keep singing it in rehearsals, because I thought, if I don't get the emotion out now, I'm going to lose this on stage. And yet, actually, every night I did just want to weep. And I remember at the time I didn't have children, and I remembered you saying to me, you said, "Oh, if you had children, you wouldn't be able to sing that."
Didn't I? Yes.
You did. I remember it clearly. Yeah.
But
and
then
now I
that's,
totally agree with you.
yeah, no, well, yeah, no, that's so true. It's like, but you would be able to sing it because then you become a professional.
I know.
No, but then because I've been through that too. I remember doing a rehearsal. I won't say where it was, and I thought, oh, that's a rather good. I've done that really rather well, you know, and I cried, and that was really good. And the director said to me that was terrible, and I went, really? Thought it was a really, you know, really interesting. No, because it was all about you.
You, yeah.
All about you were indulging yourself rather than going just over it, and then
yeah. It's a fine line.
Very
it's
fine.
a very, yeah.
I wonder
but you
if
have
you
to
might
go that far, you know.
I'm sorry to interrupt that because it's so interesting, but I'm just wondering, there might be someone here who doesn't know the story. So if you might just between you, give me the 60-second version of the story.
Oh, over to you, Anne.
Okay, well, Kostelnichka has a stepdaughter called Jenufa, who is very lovely and young, and she is admired by a person called Steva, and they have an affair, and he gets her pregnant, and then he decides, no, I'm going off. He drinks a lot and he likes other women too, so he abandons her. And there is a character called Latza who adores Jenufa, but she's not really interested in him. He's rather boring compared to Steva, who is Jack the Lad and drinks and he's fun. And then she's left with having a baby. And so this is terrible for Kostelnichka because she is person of the church, she's person of the village, she's admired and renowned, and so they go off and they go into a somewhere remote. She lives in this cottage with Jenufa. Jenufa has the baby, and then Steva comes back to find her, and she says, will you marry her? No, he won't marry her. And then Latza comes. I'm getting it wrong. I'm getting it right now, aren't I?
You get it right.
Yeah, yeah. Then she gets, so Latza comes to see Kostelnichka and says, well, you know, she's available to be, will you marry her? Do you want to marry her? And does he know about the baby? He doesn't.
She does tell him, he initially rejects it.
That's
and
right.
then she says, oh, well, actually it's died.
And that's it. She thought, well, he won't have her with the baby. What we're going to do? So she makes the decision to take the baby and put it in the water, and it gets frozen over because all she wants is respectability, and she just wants her Jenufa to be happy, to be married with Latza, who will look after her. And then, in short, so you can imagine the turmoil, and she does it purely out of love, no other reason. And then, in the end, it all's revealed. They find the baby in the ice. And then Kostelnichka has to confess everything. And Latza and Jenufa forgives Kostelnichka, who is taken away. And then they go off, hopefully have a happy life. Is that about right?
That's exactly right. I mean, it's out of love, but there is a thing that you both have to lose everything you have.
Oh, yeah.
Kostelnichka's position is who she is. And she isn't proud of how well she loves, but she does love. I don't think she thinks she's good at loving, but she does love. And she has to lose everything. And of course, Jenufa loses most terribly everything that she has.
Yeah.
Really, it's an extraordinary opera to to take on. And of course, Janacek's own eldest daughter died in the middle of him writing it. She was away from home, and he had become a much fonder parent of her in her later adolescence. And so the opera has big jumps in terms of narrative, and it has a big jump in his life during which big things happened, and he was a very unhappy man. Anyway, we should get on to more positive things, I suppose.
No, but I should also, I forgot to say that also Kostelnichka doesn't ever want her to be with Steva because it reminds her of her husband, who was drowned. He probably beat her, all those things. So
it's
she
the
doesn't want
most
that.
complicated family history
Very.
chart of any opera that I've ever done, because of all these half relationships.
Yeah.
And tell me, so you both, I remember, came to rehearsal so impeccably prepared. You brought so much into the room, even though you're very different kinds of performers. And then the two principal chaps, the Lazza and the Steva, are also very different kind of performers. Richard Roberts, who plays Steva, you give him a little fish and he just wants to run with it. He wants to make something of it right away. And the Lazza was the chap who he had an awful lot of feelings. He had a lot of unmaking to do before he made what he was going to create in the character. And I know, Anne, you had worked on it before and you wanted to think about it in your own way, and you were very intense and beautiful with it. I remember it's the only time in any rehearsal room I've ever had where a performer stopped a rehearsal and said, "No, I don't want to do that bit now. So I want this to stop." You didn't want to get to something that was emotionally too difficult for you that day, and it was very wise. And
probably. Yes,
I went
actually,
home thinking, "Cripes, what did I do wrong?"
No.
And Amanda, I remember you saying to me, "Do not make me invent. Give me a structure. Just give me a structure." And the only moment
I'm actually still the same. I still like to have the
it's a great way.
and then I can maneuver through it and find my own way. But I still like to have,
Well, it's a great way to be. But the one moment when you didn't need anything given you was when you had to dance. And I
I remember.
I thought, hell, she's an amazing mover.
My mother will be rolling her eyes.
But you really are. And then Richard turns out very unusual.
He's a great mover.
Really good dancer. So
there was a party in those rehearsals.
Yeah. And I was dreading that scene because I hate it when the village starts getting live.
We had some fun.
Yes,
amidst the pain and the anguish of the opera.
Do you think it changed you, that opera, as a performer?
Oh, it did me, I think. Yes, I mean, I hadn't ever done anything quite like that before. And I learned so much, actually. Every time I did, I learned so much. I think the last time I did it, it took a lot out of me, actually, emotionally. It really, really did. I found it incredibly difficult. And I started to get panic attacks before I went on, and it was all fine. But it was just, it really does something to you. I don't know if you felt that.
I think something about Januszek too, that it's, in a way, it's unoperatic.
Yes.
You know, it almost reads,
it's like a play.
It reads like straight theatre, like you're doing a play of the most intense, intimate nature. And so I think that once you've gone through a role like Jenufa or Kostelnička, you have to dig very deep in how you portray it and the feelings you go through. And I think you come out a better singing actress at the end of it.
Definitely, absolutely, yes, yeah.
I don't know how people wake up and do things the next day when they performed Katya. I mean, Jenufa and Kostelnička, they have a kind of solution, even if it's a rough one. But Katya, my goodness.
No, that's well. So have you done Katya, Amanda? I
covered it at the Royal Opera House when I was very young.
Okay.
So I would say at that point it's not, covering is not the same as actually really going on.
No, it's not. No.
So I think I scratched the surface with it,
yeah.
And it was a time ago. But it's an amazing role. I've seen it performed, and it's devastating.
Yes, I mean, well, I've done it twice at Kabanika.
Oh yes.
And now she is horrible. She is. She's vile.
It's hard to find where she's come from as a person.
Yeah, it's but I quite enjoyed it. And I'll tell you the story. The last time I did it, my son was going out with this girl, and so I don't know why, but for some reason she wanted to go to the opera, and her parents wanted to go to the opera, and her sister and husband wanted to go to the opera, and they were like, they met me at the end, and they were like, oh, it's really fierce.
Don't mess with that
They
lady.
really thought that that's what I was like, you know. But I quite enjoyed that. It's completely different, and I love it. If I get cross, I give my Monica face, which isn't very much, but it tells a lot.
But they're great scenes. I mean, it's very satisfying. You know, a baddie is good to play, and boy, she's bad.
Oh, yeah,
and
she's
Decoy
horrible.
is so bad; it's so grotesque.
Yeah.
Whereas the Katya scene, oh my God, her heart is too open for this world. I think.
Yeah. It's very hard to be. Yeah, that's the hard thing, is being horrible to a Katya that's really lovely. That is, well, it is. It's horrible, you know. Anyway, that's a different thing. Different.
Do you think that, you know, I don't know if you've ever done a role for which you didn't feel absolutely, I'm absolutely technically on top of this, but it was quite clear when you came to do Kostelnička and Jenufa that you were both technically, you had that armor. It was hard, but you were really prepared, and you had worked out your way of singing it. As far as I could tell, it seemed to me that, you know, there wasn't a great deal of vocal coaching going on in the room. It was, you'd figured your way around the role, you'd figured out how to do it. And I just always thought, well, it looks to me like having that will protect them from the emotions killing them.
That's true. You have to know how to sing it in anything you do, actually, so that you can leave that behind. So you're not thinking about that when you're on stage. You have to know that everything is in place, everything is in balance, so that you can just go on stage and deliver the text, know what it means, reveal your emotions to the audience. But technically, don't you do agree, Amanda?
Yeah, I just think the more technically prepared you can be before you get to rehearsals,
always,
it's such an advantage, because, you know, it just ties you up in knots if you're worrying about how to sing this phrase, how to sing it. I kind of like to get it all done in advance.
Yeah.
And then you're free to express what you want to express. You know?
Well, totally. I mean, there's always going to be parts of a role that's coming up. You think, oh God, that note's coming up. That's coming up. That top B is coming up. How am I going to do that? Oh God. There are always those moments, but you just have to be totally secure. I mean, when because I teach, that's my main thing now. I teach, and they say, oh, I get nerves. I said, well, of course you get nerves. Oh, what do I have strategies? And I said, well, no, I think the main strategy actually is to be completely technically secure and to know what you're doing. Then that you have a different kind of nerves rather than.
Therein lies the challenge.
Well, yes, of course. That's why it takes a long time to know what you're doing.
It does. And your voice changes too as you get older. There are different things come in. Some things improve, some things get harder. It's sort of, that's kind of what I love about singing. It's always a challenge. You never, I never feel like I'm there. I'm always climbing.
Well, we shouldn't feel
that.
Yeah, we shouldn't feel that. If the minute that we think we've learnt everything, then what's the point? You always have to keep learning. Whatever you do, you're always learning.
Absolutely.
Well, I believe that anyway.
I certainly am. I get the feeling I know less as time goes on rather than more. But I have to say, it makes such a difference in the rehearsal room when people are technically assured. Now, it's good if people, obviously, they're prepared to consider new things, but you can only consider new things if you know you can do it. And if people are kind of putting their technique together on the spot, I just don't think they've got enough headspace to make it very physical.
No.
You know? And stillness.
Well, then it's also
like
you can't trust yourself if you're working it out on stage. Then the nerves are going to come in because you know it's too much.
Well, and the performance won't be real, will it? You won't be able to express exactly what you're feeling, what you're saying. You just of course you have to be aware of what you're doing. You have to be aware of your body. You have to know that everything's working in balance, everything is in the right place. But to think, well, I put that note there and I do that there and I do that there, then if you're thinking all that, how can you express the emotion? You can't. It's not possible, is it? Or maybe it is, I don't know, but not for me, it isn't, you know.
And actually the physicality has to be mapped too, so that you can be expressive, because it's not like everywhere on stage is lit. But I think a lot of people probably, if they haven't had the, well, I don't know if you call it good fortune to be in a rehearsal room. It's a very nuts and bolts kind of place. But,
it's great. It's great.
If they haven't been there, they probably don't know that, you know, you can rehearse a section that lasts, let's say, 7 minutes, but it might actually be 3. And, you know, that might be the most of the subject of something. Anyway, you have a bit of a run at it, 3 or 7 minutes or something like that. And then, because what happens is, who goes first? The conductor starts saying what they would like to be different. The repetitor starts gently playing a key that wasn't quite in tune, or the director jumps in with what the intention and the going left and the going right and the relationship here, and do you need to be looking at, and think, holy cow, you can only listen to maybe 3 things. So, and people on the other side of the desk are often scoring points by showing all the stuff that they know.
Oh, really?
And so you can end up with like 12 points that you're being asked to remember. And I think, how the hell are they ever going to put all of that together in the next? Just let's keep it down to the headlines here and try to build slowly, you know?
Oh, I know. It can be, it can be very frustrating at times when you do something and you're as you say, one person is telling you one thing and then you get the language on, can I just give you this, you know, and he's like, yeah, can I just do that? And it's fine, and then after a while it's like, oh, just leave me alone.
Just wears you down.
All those clipboards. All those clipboards.
Yeah, you have to develop, you really have to develop the smile and nod technique.
Oh, yes. Oh,
tell me about that, Amanda.
I'll try and do that.
It took me a long time to learn that one. It took me too long to learn that one.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. And so when you smile and nod, are you making your own choices about what you're going to listen to?
No,
that's right, James.
Well, you do listen. No, you do listen, but I think you do listen, but you sort of think, well, okay, yes, thank you, then they'll go away. But if you start questioning and asking, then it just gets deeper and deeper, and
especially if you have a long rehearsal period. And there's the luxury of everybody chipping in all the time.
Oh, yes.
And there are, I mean, obviously, sometimes you need to hear it and you get great advice, but I think sometimes you also have to sift out what works for you, and
it's hard. Yeah.
You can't take on board everybody's advice all the time. Otherwise, you end up not remembering where your standpoint was.
No, that's true.
I'm only just learning still that you have to try and let people discover it, enable them to discover it by asking the right questions at the right time. You know, having given a structure, providing information, you know, but then, I don't know, it's so easy to give lectures. And it's much harder to ask the right questions so people find their own way. I don't know, Bradley's grinning there. He's probably thinking, jeepers, you never ask me any questions. You just tell me what to do all the time.
And I'm thinking, it's like that with my kids. Note to self, I must remember that. Thanks for the top tip, James.
I was just thinking how much we enjoyed the lectures. I actually was just going to jump in. Yeah, I was just going to jump in there and just remind everyone if they want to ask a question, just put it in the chat. And I was just going to share my screen to show you some of the production shots of Jenufa, our Jenufa, because I thought it might be nice to remind some people, and some people have not seen them before. And if James or Anne or Amanda, you want to comment as I go through, then feel free. But it was a really beautiful production.
You know, it wasn't really esteemed visually, and it was exactly what I wanted visually. It was very abstract, stark, focused on performance. And
Wayne?
and it was Michael Vale, a very pure designer, but it wasn't appreciated so much. And I've seen all kinds of cutesy, ethnic-y looking ones that were. Oh, that's the last moment.
That's that beautiful music playing.
Yeah. Yeah. Dwayne was an exceptional actor, wasn't he? I mean, he
He was
took a lot of
lovely.
risks.
Yeah, he was lovely. I liked him.
There's Richard and Dwayne. Very, very simple, and it didn't give you anywhere to hide, but it didn't. There was nothing between you and the narrative, in a way.
Yeah, well, you don't need it, really, do you? I mean, gosh.
Oh, look at that lust.
Yeah, it's very. I remember that. Yeah. Oh, you remember that window? Yeah.
I love boxes, small boxes in sets that can change color.
Oh God. Yeah. Oh dear.
I wish we had a view of the whole set for that one, because it was just Anne and a stove, and the rest was just a birch ply wall and birch ply floor. But we never
Fantastic
get
acoustic.
Yeah.
It was a great acoustic, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's an amazing thing when your first discussion with designers always, how is this going to help the sound? But they have never been, without fail, no one's ever asked them that before. And it's never brought up in design school. No one ever thinks about the acoustic properties of sets.
Should be, yeah.
It can make it so difficult if you have a bad acoustic on stage. It's a long night.
Oh, carpet
Those
on
little
stage.
cords of yours, you know?
Carpet, fabric, curtain.
Yes.
No shape to the wood, or no shape to canvas flats rather than wood. Yeah, that's quite true.
We've got a question here from Michael, which is, he says that he first encountered Anne when he was working as a volunteer at Adam Pollock's Batignano Festival in 1984.
Oh.
She was singing the part of Bella in the premiere of Stephen Oliver's La Bella e la Bestia, and he's asked, which is most challenging, a role in a new or unknown opera, or one in a well-established work where comparisons can be made with others?
Oh, it depends what the new opera is. Sorry. I think I did do one a couple of years ago in Aldborough, a new opera, and it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. In fact, so hard to memorize that I wrote the words down in a little book that I took on stage with me. I know, I've never ever done that in my whole career, ever. And in the end, I did remember it all, but the notes were just, it was brilliant. It was really good. It was really hard. So that's challenging. What was the other part of the question? I mean, the Stephen Oliver, that wasn't challenging because it was lovely music, and it was like Jonathan Dove. I mean, it was just, wasn't modern. That makes sense. It wasn't off the wall.
Didn't you just do a very difficult modern opera, Amanda, all over the world?
I did. But my take on it was that, of course, it takes a long time to learn a new opera if it's being written in a complex manner. But once you've gone through that painstaking rehearsal period, it's in your brain forever. I hear Exterminating Angel by Addis. Every few days, some little bit of it will still go through my head. And actually, they had a relay of it a few weeks ago from the Met. And I honestly, I could have got up and just sung it all then and there.
Yeah,
because it's now, where there's some roles that I haven't done in a few years, and they've just sort of, I would have to relearn it. But one of the things I like about doing a new role is there's no one's going to compare you.
That's true.
Like, oh, well, she doesn't sound like Tubaldi, or she doesn't sound like the Freni recording, or no one knows what you should sound like, or what type of voice should sing it. And I actually found that really liberating, because you could just do what you wanted with it, as long as the composer is happy with that. But I liked the not having the whole historical recording background comparison thing going on. So for me, I like that about doing a new role.
No, that's interesting. I will tell you a funny story actually. That 2 seconds.
Okay.
I was doing one in Lille actually. It was written by this French composer, and it was based on the Kafka play. And they sent me the recording that he'd recorded, and we put it on the CD player in the car. And Jeff said, "Oh, there's something wrong with the CD player because it was horrendous." And that was challenging because I think I had to sing Gregor 60 times in different parts. I didn't know where I was, and it ended up the conductor either going up or down, and he would tell me which one. That was challenging. Yeah, exactly. Unbelievably difficult, you know. But I did it, and it was great, and it was a great success.
I'm sure it's good for our brains, you know.
It is. Well, that's why I do like that challenge very much. So you've got to have a challenge, haven't you? Here we are. So I knew I see all the wrong things, but maybe not.
No. I was just trying to think if you must at some point in the process have said, is there a point to this? Because, you know, I remember doing a new opera not that long ago, which I thought was extraordinary. But there was a real struggle in the room with some people in large parts, not many maybe, really not getting it. And, you know, that's where, for me, it's all about the conductor, because they have to inspire a love for the music and a sense of how worthwhile the music is, either the conductor or the coach. Because if you sense any skepticism in them about its merit, it's just a ticket to ride.
Well, yeah, and I mean, especially if the composer is sitting there and he's making funny noises and you giggle and then you get told off because and then he tells you sound too operatic, and I say, well, that's the way I do that bit, and then in the end they love it, you know. Yeah, all those things. There you go. It's all a challenge.
Any other questions from anybody coming up?
No, I think everyone's been so entranced.
Thank you so much.
Everybody's still there.
They're all still there. They're all still there. No, if anyone has anything to ask, then this is your final chance.
I'm just wondering. I see Angela Hickey there, and I'm wondering, did she ever sing in Jenufa? Her microphone's silent. Maybe she's gone away and we don't know.
Busted.
But she must have done anyway. It's so good to see you both again.
This has been so lovely.
Working with you both is such a special memory for me. Sometimes question whether anything in my life has had much value, but I know it was valuable working with you. And, you know, that last scene in Maria Suarda, Alcina, that enormous craft of making something on a bare floor that was like an island, and making something out of those 7 arias.
Long arias.
And then the Onegin was very, very special, Amanda. For me, it was, I think we reached a really high level of theatrical craft with all that. And
collaboration between us.
Yeah.
By that point, we really trusted each other. And
yeah, and we were actually making things for the public. So I'm so grateful for you, because you do understand why you're doing it.
I don't say it lightly, but for me, being at English Touring Opera was the huge turning point for me. I mean, it was that experience that I needed so desperately, and it came at just the right time in my life. And those years were really happy years. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, and I thank the company.
That's really nice, actually. And I think, well, you know, all those places that you tour as well, you know, Kendal, you know, a leisure centre in Kendal. I mean, it's not easy, is it? But it's really good for you. And I think a couple of times people came up to me and said, I've never seen an opera before, but I'm going to go now. I'm going to go to more operas. And I'm not just saying it either, but that's what it does. It really does. It's so important. And It's where I'm grateful to you as well, James. Thank you.
Oh, you don't have to be grateful
Well, I
to me.
am.
It's a privilege to be with you now, as it was then. I mean,
I wish we could do that.
I know. But we do have a chance to do extraordinary things in ordinary places. I mean, ordinary is my favorite
It's really
word.
important.
Yeah.
Well, I think
it
brings you back. Yeah, it brings you back down to earth as well.
Mm.
That's really important. It does, doesn't it? You know, people, young singers, well, sorry, but they moan about this or they haven't got that. I say, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Do Jenufa in a leisure centre, then you'll know.
Yes, or because the theatre's closed because of a strike, we're down the hall in the church.
That's it. Yeah.
But I always think as long as the lights go down and then you start up, to me it doesn't matter which theatre you're in.
No,
it doesn't matter. Once the music starts, you hear the orchestra and the lights go down, you're in that special place. And
it doesn't matter where you are.
I don't really think the size of the theatre or their standing should be the most important thing, you know.
No, it's not. It isn't.
No.
I think one great thing that you offer, and it just sounds like a flattery session, but when people aren't sure why they do what they do, what's the purpose of it? You know, some people just have a gift and they land up in it, and it's there almost in spite of them that that's what they're doing. But I always had the sense with you, and indeed with Dwayne and with Richard very extrovert in his expression of it, that you know why you're doing it and you respect the audience. You want an audience. You know you're performing for an audience.
Yeah, it is.
And not looking down at them, not thinking they're stupid or that you should do anything less than true.
No, never.
And both of you, I felt at the end, it's like you were marking yourself on the truth of your performance that night. And that's how I mark myself. So
yeah, you always have to, wherever you are.
Special thing when you feel that connection with an audience, when you can, you know, some nights you can really feel the energy. And I think that's extraordinary, and I don't have that in any other part of my life other than when you're on stage, the lights are down and you can feel that when people are really listening.
But it's also like it's like power as well, isn't it? I mean, I did something last year, Dead Man Walking. Have you heard of Dead Man Walking? I did that last year and it was fantastic. And I think probably for once in my life, I just thought, yes, you know, I've always just loved being on stage. I'm not an extrovert person. I'm quite quiet and shy, really. But on stage, and people say, "Oh, I didn't know you were like that." You know, I didn't know you could do that, because it just feels right, you know. And I'm happy on stage. And I thought last year, well, this might be my last performance, and it may well have been, but I thought I'm going to make the most of it, and I just love it. And you can't, it's just something in you, isn't it, Amanda? That
it's, for me, it's, I mean, I've said this before and it sounds true, but it's my drug, it's my high. And, you know, there is a lot of, it's not always an easy career, we know this.
Oh no.
But I still, when I get on there and the rush happens, I'm like, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
I would go through all of that again for this moment and the way it makes me feel. And like when I think it's like that outpouring of everything inside you just comes out.
That's it. You can just do that, can't you?
And I just love that. I still love it.
Yeah,
you know?
Me too.
Yeah.
That's a great
so let's hope we'll find new ways to express ourselves in the future when life comes to some new form.
Well, it's still there. It's still in us. That doesn't go away, you know.
No.
So.
No.
Thank you so much, Brad. I think we've done a lot of talking here, but it's so beautiful, and you shared so generously, and so.
I know. I was very nervous, James.
No.
Thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? But it's fine. You know, you just have to be yourself, and you know. I have to give my dog his diabetic jab now, and Jeff's walked in the room and I'm going, go away.
get back to the
He's got-
homeschooling.
Yeah, he's got to say hello. Sorry. Sorry.
Hello.
I think it's allowed.
Hello. Speaking of Onyegin.
Indeed.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
our
Yes,
wonderful Grammy.
That's a while ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't yesterday or the day before.
And it was with Amanda as well.
It was. I think she had some small part in it.
Yeah. I still remember. Yeah.
Warbled a bit.
She had good taste, though, didn't you? She had good taste. She stuck with
Very good.
Grammy.
She knew
Oh,
to
yeah,
marry.
I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
She knew to marry. The other guy was throwing chairs around. She knew he
I
was not.
know. I remember that. Yeah.
I knew it was good for me.
All right. I leave it to
Love
you.
you to
Thank
see
you.
you.
I was just
Bye bye. Get the dinner, yeah, fine. Get the dog.
I better go and get the dinner.
Thanks so much to everyone for joining us, and particularly thank you to Amanda and Anne. That was brilliant. It was so
Thank
good.
you.
We've got clapping. We've got an ovation.
Oh,
in
well,
the
I
room.
really enjoyed it because it just makes you feel normal, and I've been doing all these Zoom online lessons, and they've been amazing, and so it just makes you feel part of it all again, isn't it? You know, it's so lovely to see you, James and Amanda.
You're wonderful. James, go fix that crack now.
Yeah.
Oh, there's way too many of them for me to fix, and it's way too hot here.
How's Jonathan? Is he okay?
He's fine. He's in another room hiding.
Oh, well, no, I wish he'd. No, never mind. What?
Jonathan.
Just say Jonathan. Remember
Come and say hello to the girls.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry, can't resist it. Sorry, Bradley.
Well, while James goes and fetches Jonathan, I'll do a bit of advertising for next week. James is going to talk about our proposed plans for the autumn season. So a series of monodramas and song cycles in a socially distanced way, and so that's next week's plan, which we'd love to have you join.
Yeah.
Is Jonathan on his way?
He's sitting down.
Here
Jonathan,
he is.
hello.
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 Good Lord.
How are you?
Welcome,
Nice to see
welcome.
everybody.
Yeah.
Hello, Amanda, are you in America?
I am, yes.
Wow.
Oh.
So sadly, I do not have a glass of wine with me.
Oh.
I don't
can't
yet,
wait
but I'm
for
about
mine.
to.
I had to do this on coffee alone.
Well done. Well done.
And Anna,
Oh,
Anna,
yeah.
are you in Lewis?
What was that?
Sorry.
Are you in Lewis, Sam?
Yes, I'm in Lewis. Yeah, absolutely.
The last time I saw Anne Mason was in Lewis.
Was
We
it?
bumped into
Oh,
yes,
you're with your mum. Yes.
that's right. I bumped into you on the street randomly.
That's right. How many children have you got now, Amanda?
Too many. No, I have two.
Oh, I'm so pleased for you. That's really nice.
Yeah, keeps me busy.
Oh, yeah. That's the best thing ever. Jonathan, did you get the book, The Pile of Stones? Have you looked at it?
I haven't yet. Actually, it's funny. I met somebody yesterday who was asking me about who knew Tony Fabian.
Yeah.
And was talking about the film. I haven't read it yet. I saw it on Amazon.
I bought it, yeah, because I couldn't go to the book launch, and it's just pictures, and it's like, oh, yeah, just remembering.
I must get a copy actually. It'd be
Yeah.
nice to do.
Yeah. Anyway, you look great. Both of you look great. Really nice. So, hey, I kept everyone too long. Sorry.
Well, it's so nice to see you all.
See you all.
Yeah. And good luck, Amanda, with everything. And thanks, Bradley.
Thank you. So nice to see
Thank
you.
you. Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
watching. Bye. Bye.
Bye.